Alright, so this video is going to specify how you always gave life meaning and where this meaning actually came from. So, I mentioned in the last video, I'm pretty sure, that your life pretty much started when either one or this other thing happened. Basically, you had an experience that involved a lot of your senses and it was very intense. An example would be a very exciting experience or a very traumatic experience. Many of the traumatic ones, because the traumatic ones tend to have more sensory input, like hearing shit because of yelling and feeling shit because you may have been getting hit or something like that. However, the happy ones can have sensory input too, because you had a birthday party, you may have heard shit at the party, you may have been touched like in a positive way by your parents or by your friends, you know, some form of interaction. But yeah, what controls what you remember is basically how intense the memory was based upon the intensity of feeling and the intensity of sensory input. Now, your mainstream though of you being a person and stuff like that, that came when you started thinking. You feel me? Like you was just in this bitch and you started thinking one day. Like I've seen, like my brother literally sent me a TikTok about how this one guy was like, how his life started at 5 years old. Like he was just sitting there like this, and then out of nowhere he was like, because he was able to start perceiving and then interpreting things. You feel me? Because interpretation is different than perceiving. You could always perceive shit, but when you start actually interpreting that bitch, because your perception's hit a certain point, that's when shit gets crazy. Then you start thinking. Then you start being like, I'm this person, that's that person. I like these things, I don't like those things. You feel me? I want to do this, I don't want to do that. All that stuff happens. And then eventually you get those big thought provokers like, who am I? Big thing. You feel me? Who is God? Big thing. What happens when I die? Big thing. What's the meaning of life? Big thing. You know? And eventually, when you hit that point, you have a couple of options. Because you already had a couple of options of thinking as you start growing up, which I'm going to tell you where that comes from. I'm going to tell you what influences how you start thinking, all that type of stuff, and like how you start giving life a meaning. So you have a lot of things that could lead you up to that point. But eventually, everyone kind of asks those questions. Now, when they do, they either just forget all about it and it goes inside their unconscious level of awareness. You feel me? Or people seek out religion, or they seek out like a spiritual system. They could also just like think about that all day, you know, or they may do a combination of all of these. Now, with that being said, eventually they start getting somewhat of an answer, you feel me? And then they just act that out. And, you know, they may, and then depending on how their life goes, they may change their meaning of life and then see how that works out for them. And if it doesn't go well, they're going to change it again and blah, 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 blah. You feel me? Whatever they believe, they just start acting that out. Now, with that being said, that's how they've been giving life the meaning. Because you just been coming to all these damn conclusions, and then you associate that as being the meaning. Now, at a certain point, though, if you fine tune your perception, you start perceiving stuff properly, which leads to a clearer interpretation, then you eventually start seeing why all these religions kind of say the same exact thing. And that's because when it comes to like certain meanings and definitions of life, right, it's going to change wherever and whenever you're at. So the time period is going to affect your mythology, and your cultural influence is going to like affect your religion. For example, if you're in a cold area, your people may have coats in the mythology. If you live in a hot area, your people may have shirts off in their mythology. You know, I got that one from Dr. Muwada Ashby, the fact that your culture will definitely affect your mythology and stuff like that. Also, the time period, you feel me? Inside like older days, you may have fucking woolly mammoths and a woolly mammoth inside their fucking mythology. You're not gonna have that shit nowadays, though. Nowadays, you may have fucking lantern flies. Shout out to the old ass people on my channel who remember when I was doing vlogs and shit like that. I kept on getting them niggas just kept on fucking coming near me, bro. Fuck them GMO ass shits, bro. I don't fuck with them shits. Now, with that being said, I don't fuck with them on a biological level. On a spiritual level, it is whatever. But on a biological level, I'm not cool with that shit. You feel me? Now, yeah, you start seeing why they all say the same exact shit, you feel me? And that's why the general message is usually just always, it's not even usually, it's always to just get in tune with the source, whether they have called it God, whether they called it the self, whether they called that shit the universe, you feel me? If you understand why they give it these names and stuff like that, because there's a lot of that goes into these religions. It's just that people only look at them for the surface level and never go to the deeper implications of that stuff, and then go beyond all that type of stuff, you feel me? But when you do that stuff, you start seeing why they all say the same exact stuff. And the reason why they always tell you to get in tune with the source is due to the simple fact that when you're in tune with the source, you're going to know what to properly think, feel, and that type of stuff at the right time. Because there's no one answer to anything. It's always going to change in life because the situation's always changing in life. As you get into the future, you have new shit, you may have a new environment, and the same shit may not fucking work. Nigga, if you was just in a tropical area, stuff like that, I mean, we're not tropical, but if you were just in like a perfect area where you never had to work for your food or nothing like that and stuff like that, right? It's gonna be different if you go to the fucking cold where you can't plant shit or nothing like that. You're gonna have to change how the fuck you live. You feel me? Like a lot of shit's gonna change, and if you're in tune with the source, you'll be able to properly make that change. But if you're just going off of ideology and stuff like that, right? You feel me? Which is not what you should do. Ideology is supposed to help you get in tune with the source, but if you only stick at the ideology, if you only go based upon ideas, you feel me, that you've gotten somewhere else and that you haven't gotten from the source. If you heard an idea about live life this way and you do that for your whole entire life, I mean, shit, it may work because it worked for that time period, but at some point it's not gonna work no more. It's like a fucking cheat code that you had that got passed in the fucking game because because you got all these cheat codes and stuff like that, instead of just getting good at the game, you feel me, whenever it gets patched, you're sick. You know, you had a cheat code, which was this belief that you didn't really get off the strength. You didn't really get that off the source. You just got that from like a YouTube video, or you got that from a spiritual text or something like that. You feel me? It was working for a while, but then this shit got patched. You feel me? Because you never actually got good at life. You never actually got in tune with the source. You feel me? Therefore, you didn't really know what the fuck to do. You feel me? And it's like, I could see multiple times in my life where I've did that shit. You feel me? I can, like, nigga, like, no cap, like, I hope you know, like, in order for me to know all this shit, I had to have been through this shit firsthand. So I'm not trying to come on here like I'm some perfect ass nigga. Like, no, I realized all the different ways that niggas be fucking up. I realized all the different ways, like, I just realized a lot of shit off of my own experience of life. And then it's like, when I just integrate yoga, and I mean like the yoga of wisdom, devotion, you feel me, action, meditation, and the serpent power yoga, you feel me? When you integrate all them bitches, it's like, you know, that shit kind of helped a nigga, you know? And I'm gonna just keep on learning shit, and I'm gonna share what the fuck I learned. And yeah, but that's how you've been given life meaning. And in the next video, it's gonna be talking about where that actually comes from.